And welcome to Game Master's Guide. I'm Jonathan Albin, your host, and we are going to be looking at another bunch of campaign secrets, things that you really should include in your game sessions to make them awesome. We're going to be going well beyond our original 10 that we provided a couple of weeks ago, and if you want to know more information, the video link for that video is just down below. And before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, especially share this video with others so that they can additionally improve their games as well.
Absorbing damage is the name of the game. From the claws of monsters or the heat from a ball of flame, or strength in numbers is a roll of the dice.
Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about some things that are rather easy to add to your campaigns and aren't a big push in terms of work for you as a game master, but they do take a little bit of effort and a little bit of thought process ahead of time to really make your sessions pop. And we're going to try to get through these as quickly as possible, so let's get after it. So, one of the things that a player needs to know right from the beginning of every session is where we are within the story. And it really is a amplifier if your players can look to you to provide them with the reminders of where they are in the story. Now, this doesn't have to take a lot of detail, but it does require you to actually perhaps take a couple of notes about where you ended in the previous session, what's going on, where the players are, and what they're trying to accomplish. You really give the players a bit of an acknowledgement or a back scratch, so to speak, when you're able to let them know, hey, what happened last week really mattered and it's definitely a part of the story, and here's why and how that connects with what's going on moving forward. I utilize the concept of our story so far so that I can actually include some player embellishments as well, because when the players are able to identify what they particularly were working on, it really helps to make the adventure partly their own as well. And this player perspective is really important, even as you are filling in information that the players need to know, provided in a way that it fits into their thinking. And one of the ways you can do this, of course, is to ask your players what they recall and then simply amplify the portions of their memories to remind them specifically where you are and where you're headed. And when you do this, you give them the opportunity to make the story more their own and to also kind of personalize what's going on with the game. One of the things that I've noted in newer releases that are coming out is there's more of a attempt to contrive this connection, and the best way to contrive the situation is to have the players actually define it for you. So by reaching out for their player perspective, you are giving them permission to build out beyond what you originally framed as the memory for the week's adventure. Of course, when you are telling the story, you want to put it in such fashions that the player's memory recollection of it will be more strident and more severe and more detailed. And so by providing information to the players, much as you would describe a scene in a motion picture, you give them a deeper, more visceral, more internal feeling about what happened in that particular portion of the session, and it really helps to drive that story directly into their memory. I haven't talked about it as much recently because I haven't noticed it occurring as much in my games groups, but one of the biggest benefits of a strident and stiff memory of what happened in the previous week is that the players will look back on that fondly in the future and talk about it when other things of similar nature come up. And maybe it's because I'm running into far less of this memory trigger, but I have noted that players who have a very clear memory of the fight scenes and the challenges that they face are more likely to draw back on that information in future adventures, and therefore be able to amplify the joy they found at your table. All right, so when you're building your adventure, one of the things that you can provide, and I recommend it, and this is one of the real secrets of being a good game master, is create some creative assets for the players to hold on to after the session in a tangible way, so that they have a real strong feel for the adventure. I don't have one here with me at this moment. Perhaps I'm a little unprepared. But whether it be a letter, a missive written by a subordinate or a superior in the game that they need to hold on to, or whether it be a secret message from the king to an attaché, by having an actual physical asset in your hands and to provide your players with, you give them a deeper sense of the importance of it, especially if you remind them that you will be calling back for that item in a future reference. I promise you they will bring it with them every time if they are aware that their characters' lives do depend on it. And so by utilizing these creative assets, you're providing them with a solid physical understanding of their place in the game and how they are affecting the rest of the game world at the same time. Right about 10. All right, now another thing that I highly recommend, and not everyone does this, but do remember to build into your story, especially if it's going to be a long, like a multi-session campaign, or if it's 3 or 4 or 5, 6 hours into the game, to make sure you take some intermissions and breaks. And in this case, an intermission is a literally intended break in the action so that the players can breathe, so that they can consider their options, so they can look at their resources. And what you generate for yourself is what I call member berries. I know there's other people that use the same term, but I'm referring to building places in the story that the players will remember session over session. And one of the ways to do that is to reinforce it during these intermissions and call out the really clever actions in the very detailed way with which the players responded to your prompts, and show them the credit and respect for the work that they've done in the game so far. And when you do this, when you provide them with these player breaks, you also give them the chance to really internalize what's happened within the scene and why it is particularly important for the story. Even if it wasn't initially, by the time you get done with 2 or 3 of these well-timed intermissions, the players will have learned how to really take advantage of those breaks and hammer into their own memory things that happened in that segment of the game, which adds therefore to a deeper understanding and appreciation of the adventure to that point. And one of the biggest benefits you can put into your game, one of the secrets that you can bring into the game, is the concept of intentional catharsis. Yes, we all play role-play games for a variety of reasons, and sometimes those are absolutely escapist in nature, and we are just trying to get away from the world as it is and play in a fictional setting and appreciate the differences between that fictional world and the real one. By taking a few moments and actually focusing on this concept of catharsis, this idea of being in another place, you do give your players pause to actually understand and appreciate how important the work that they've done so far has been, and therefore provide them with a clear and identifiable marker within the game framework for them to hang their memories and say, okay, we accomplished this by this point. And that's very important to your story overall. Now, this one will get me into some trouble, I suppose, but the idea here is that there are times when the players are having a particularly bad day, and a particular number of session beats have been going against them. And while it may sound like I'm advocating for, quote, cheating for the players, What I'm really referring to is realize that at no time are any dice rolls required, and if the players are simply not making the mark, it's perfectly fine to avoid the actual requesting the die rolls so that they aren't having to face the music at every roll. I do know, I do know there are a bunch of you who would rather, chew nails than prevaricate to your players, but the reality is that sometimes the story elements are not being played in favor with the dice rolls, and you have to monitor that and maintain that where you can. And so sometimes it's okay to fade the story, so to speak, allow for the player explanations to suffice, and not be so demanding that the dice rolls be the only mechanism. If you have a different experience, I'd love to hear from you, so I'm sure I'll probably see those comments as well. On the other hand, there are those times when the players are feeling like the story is becoming stifling. Perhaps you've gotten some feedback that you just aren't making it dangerous enough for them. Feel free from time to time to just let the dice fall where they may, and take the game the direction that the dice rolls follow. These can be a lot of fun, and in certain cases it can be a TPK. Player have to completely recreate their characters and start over. But this idea that you can monitor the dice rolls and make for an enjoyable game session is really important. And sometimes you just have to be the bully. Sometimes you just have to be the tough guy. And letting the dice fall where they may and the dangers represent themselves well, and take down a couple of the elevated places that the players have led themselves into are perfectly advisable in certain circumstances. Not everyone, obviously, and no one of these recommendations will ever overtake the game in general. But just realize that sometimes it's okay. It's okay to just go where the dice go. Of course, it's also critically important to remember what the players are looking for in the game. When you do a session 0, that's usually one of the elemental questions that you're asking, is what the players want from the game. Well, don't forget those. Don't let them fall by the wayside. Instead, use from time to time those very agendas to drive the story, so that they will remember and feel the importance of their own statements within your game and how much you're caring about what they're trying to accomplish. So sometimes it's okay to chase those as well. And just like with the others, these aren't any one of these a do-all, be-all, but instead it is yet another tool in your toolbox to make sure your players are really feeling the enjoyment from the game as you hoped for it to be. And ultimately, of course, you need to be having fun. If the game mechanic is not working and the challenge that you set before the players seems to be unpredictable or perhaps untenable to them, it's okay to just wave your hand and say, okay, never mind, we're going to do something else. Or take the story in another direction. Or, yes, their stupid answer, that does happen to work this time. It's okay, because the point is to have a good time playing the game. And if every campaign week is exactly the same, your players are going to be driven out of their minds with routine anyway. So make sure you're having fun more than anything else in your games. So, of course, here we are at the end. I want to thank you for looking at these 10 tips that might help your game become more amazing. And I need to ask you a question. What made your last game awesome? What special sauce did your game master provide that actually made the game jump out at you? I'd love to hear from you. And also, we are getting ready for the launch of our Kickstarter program in the next week or so. So make sure you watch for that. And also, check out our order site, and all of that is listed down below. And I hope to see you in the next episode. As Granddad always said, we need to get ourselves playing more, so let's play. Talk